Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. For all of Donald Trump's attempts to subvert and sabotage the democratic process to steal the last election in 2020, overall, the system held. Maybe barely, but it held. When push came to shove, the vast majority of people involved in the election and institutions stared down a novel attempt to destroy the rule of law, and they did the right thing. The system might have bent, but it didn't break. In dozens of cases, for example, more than 60, judges up and down the entire judicial system, I'm talking state to federal court, including judges appointed by Trump and other Republicans, ruled that Trump's claims of voter fraud were complete nonsense. And individual lawyers and legal officials, Republicans in and out of the White House, stood up against Trump, too.
There is almost no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person would choose the American president.
The president said, suppose I do this. Suppose I replace him, Jeff Rosen, with him, Jeff Clark. What do you do? And I said, sir, I would resign immediately. There is no way I'm serving 1 minute under this guy, Jeff Clark.
I told him that the stuff that his people were shoveling out to the public was bull. That the claims of fraud were bull.
Asterisk on that last one, since the Attorney General Barr just fled and resigned when the going got tough. But you get the point. And it's an important point. It's important to point out because what we are seeing now, just in the last few weeks, are glimmers of what it looks like when the courts don't hold. So yesterday, federal judge Aileen Cannon, a Trump appointee who first made name for herself an egregious ruling on his behalf in the documents case, she announced that she was indefinitely postponing Donald Trump's criminal trial for stealing top secret government documents. And she did so, and this is the important part, without much of a legal justification at all. She is opting not to settle open questions before her, which is her choice. That's her choice. And then pointing out the fact that they are not settled as the reason why she has to further delay. Don't take my word for it. Here's the New York Times in a news article writing it up. Put it, quote, while Judge Cannon's stated reason for putting off the trial indefinitely was that a large number of legal issues remain up in the air, she never mentioned that she herself helped allow the logjam of motions to pile up. And, quote, over and over, Judge Cannon has treated seriously arguments that many, if not most, federal judges would have rejected out of hand. Often, her acceptance of Trump's unorthodox claims have resulted in significant delays in bringing the charges in the classified documents case in front of a jury. Because, of course, we all know this, Aileen Cannon knows it, everyone knows it, what Donald Trump wants most is for this trial to be delayed until after the election. And Cannon has so far granted him that wish. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but I do follow this all quite closely. And a lot of very smart, accomplished attorneys and legal experts, again, with different ideological backgrounds, have said they've simply never seen anything quite like what Cannon is doing. By so transparently putting her thumb on the proverbial scale to delay and thereby benefit the man who put her on the bench in the first place. As Obama Attorney General Eric Holder said yesterday, quote, and this is really something for him to say, let's just deal with a very disturbing reality here. This whole process in the documents case has simply not been on the up and up. Some, like former George W. Bush White House lawyer Richard Painter, have speculated that Judge Cannon holds ambitions for higher office, maybe the Supreme Court. Others, like former Trump White House lawyer Ty Cobb, think she is both incompetent and in the tank for the ex-president.
All she's really done today, though, is make official what everybody, including Jack Smith, already knew, which was she had no intention of getting this case to trial, and she wasn't competent to get this case to trial. The things that she has done here are really inexplicable, and it's tragic. She talks about the having honored the public's interest in the administration of justice by postponing the trial. She has not honored the public's interest, for 1 day in this case.
Now, this obvious conflict of interest raises an important point. The rule of law, which we talk about a lot on the show and on this network and venerate, is really only as good as the people who are executing it in good faith. To be clear, the world over, there are plenty of autocracies, from Egypt under Sisi to Russia under Putin, that have laws, statutes, lawyers, judiciaries, bar associations, their version of it. They have all that stuff. They just execute the law in a way that essentially supports a predetermined outcome that is corrupted by the power of certain authorities. So take the example of Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, who is currently incarcerated in Russia under bogus espionage charges. He is not a spy. He is just a journalist. He has lawyers. He is accused in the Russian system of violating specific laws. They didn't just say, we're kidnapping him, right? His case is ostensibly going through the Russian legal system. You see him here at these court dates that he keeps having. But no one seriously believes that this is anything other than trumped up to essentially take an American hostage to trade for someone, or believes that he's going to have a fair trial. The strategy there, too, is obviously to delay as long as possible, to keep this man effectively as a hostage for political reasons. And lo and behold, that's what keeps happening at court date after court date. We know what's going to happen. And again, this is, I can't stress this enough. In many ways, I don't think it's an overstatement to say that is the difference between a free society and an authoritarian one. It's not the presence of judges, laws, and lawyers. Everyone's got those, right? Now, to be clear, we're obviously nowhere near that level of judicial corruption that we're seeing in Russia, right, in this country, or what we're seeing from Judge Cannon or from the 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. These are just totally different worlds. The court is entertaining Trump's ridiculous claims of presidential immunity. That we might be able to count the court as an impartial judiciary anymore. So again, these are different worlds, but what we are seeing, again, in Cannon in the Supreme Court is a glimmer of what it looks like when you just can't really trust that good faith is what's driving the process. That's what it is. The problem becomes what to do about it. And the only answer I can come back to, and I've thought about this a lot at the human level, is shame, norms. Because in the end, remember, that's what saved us the last time around. Yes, the law helped, right? But again, if the DOJ had bent to Trump's will, if there had been 3 or 4 lawyers atop that Department of Justice who were willing to send a letter basically claiming there was widespread voter fraud, or if Mike Pence had agreed to throw out the electors from swing states Biden won, if his lawyers had advised him he could do that, I don't know. No one knows what would have happened in the end. All we've got are individual people formed by the norms and institutions they're embedded in, making decisions, hopefully coming to the right conclusions and acting in good faith, or at the very least, bowing to some sense of public pressure or shame not to do the wrong thing. So in this case, the least we can do now is state plainly and openly that what Trump-appointed Judge Aileen Cannon is doing is a scandal. When our judges don't act in good faith, when they work only to weaponize the judiciary in an effort to achieve a desired outcome, we are in very dangerous territory. That's especially true with Donald Trump effectively running to finish the job he started on January 6th, a job that can only be completed if the judiciary allows itself to be corrupted. And right now, the signs are not promising.